Welcome to GRE Snacks, snackable episodes about the GRE, GMAT, and graduate school admissions. I'm Tyler, the founder of Achievable, and we have an affordable GRE course that includes everything you need to ace your exam. A full textbook, videos on key topics, tons of GRE questions backed by our memory enhancing algorithm, a built in study planner and essay grader, and full length practice exams. You can try it out for free by going to achievable.me, and if you like it, use the code podcast to get 10% off at checkout. Now, let's get started. Today we've got Mateo Chang with us today. And Mateo, I'd love if you'd introduce yourself and your firm.
Hey, Tyler. Thanks for having me on again. Glad to be here. I'm Mateo Chang. I am full-time now working on building AI systems for clients in the United States. And on my free time, I am also an MBA interview coach, something I'm very passionate about. I love doing. I've hit an incredible um, benchmark milestone last year with over 1,000 students that I've helped get into their top five choices. So it's been a ride, man. It's been a ride.
Yeah, that's great. Well, yeah, so let's talk a little bit just about kind of what's going on in the MBA world in 2025, right? I mean, with the number of students that you're seeing, I recently have seen a few different articles that are kind of telling different stories, right? I saw an article that showed that a significant number of MBA grads, 25% of them in the M7 schools, were still without jobs 3 months after graduation, which is definitely high. But then I saw another article the other day that said that MBA applications are up 19%, this year versus last year. So definitely, there is a bit of a, I think both can kind of be linked to the same thing, which there's a bit of a white collar downsizing going on, a white collar job recession. But I am curious, in the context of all that, kind of where do you think the NBA fits today?
Yeah, no, great question. I think it depends on the way you look at it. I mean, sure, there's chatter about, 20% of grads not getting jobs, but actually, per GMAC, there's about 90% plus of top MBA grads are employed within 6 months. If you even
Hmm.
consider the ROI of an MBA, they still offer salary boosts where median post MBA salaries go from 115K to 150K at top schools. And then it also provides, possible career pivots, into, from consulting to tech. Now, I think you have to take into consideration so statistics is a funny thing, right? You have to consider the field that they're analyzing because outcomes will vary by industry, right? Tech hiring may lag, but healthcare and consulting will remain strong. So
Hmm.
what are those numbers looking at? And you can't throw that across, all fields. Um, and when we have to also take into consideration industry shifts. So let's say tech and consulting slowdowns are usually cyclical. Uh, but MBAs can provide long-term flexibility to pivot, if you want to move from finance to sustainability, right?
Hmm.
I'd say another point to consider when you're looking at these numbers is the geographic aspect of it. So schools with like regional ties will excel in local markets. Um, let's take
Hmm.
UCLA Anderson for West Coast Tech or Kellogg for Midwest CPG, right? And
Hmm.
I mean, and if you also see like the startup scene, many grads will join or even launch their own startups. So if you check out school incubators, such as Stanford's StartX, for example, they can provide you with alternative paths. So it's really hard I think it's advisable not to look at this chatter and take it at face value. I think students should really dig deep into these different aspects of what they're expecting from their MBAs and do the due
Hmm.
diligence and the research in order to maximize their potential for continuing their careers or making a career switch after their programs.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I think that makes sense. I mean, at the end of the day, the death of the MBA has been talked about many times and is still here.
Still here. Yeah.
But now, I mean, I think that there are, some alternatives, right? I mean, or just like different things that people could potentially pursue, right? Like whether it's like an executive MBA or like a hybrid program or online program or even a certificate, right? I mean, how do you see these kind of fitting into the landscape as it sits today, and kind of what, like, do you feel like they threaten sort of the big hegemonic, 2-year full-time MBAs, or not really?
Oh, good question too. It's gonna really depend. I love how we have so many different offerings now. So, I mean, they're very much popularity drivers. So, for example, hybrid programs, they provide flexibility for working professionals. They're lower cost. You have, pandemic era tech adoption, and it allows you to take on higher education from wherever you are. Now, there is also a matter of legitimacy. Top schools like Wharton and Ross, for example, they offer hybrid MBAs. Those are incredible schools, and employer perceptions are improving, but they're still kind of lagging behind the full-time programs for career switchers specifically. When considering, for
Mhm.
example, a hybrid program too, you do have networking limits. So virtual cohorts, that may lack organic networking. Uh, um, you know, you can, I mean, if that's something you're looking towards, I mean, hybrid would not be an option because the ability to spend 2 years almost every single waking hour near your cohorts, where basically your only mode of privacy is going to the bathroom. Uh, the
Mhm.
amount of networking that goes on is priceless, right? You're paying
Mhm.
for that black book, depending on the school that you're going to. Um, Regarding other hybrid programs, I know there are programs that provide employer partnerships. So some companies and some online MBAs with corporations, they have like tuition reimbursement programs that you can absolutely take advantage of if that's your thing. So not only is a hybrid program cheaper, allows more flexibility, you have the downside of less networking, but then you also have potential tuition reimbursement. In today's economy, man, that's a big sell, right? Um,
Mhm.
and regarding certifications versus, for example, an MBA program, uh,
Mhm.
Agile, like PMP, Google certifications, they are faster. They're
Right.
cheaper. But they lack the depth and networking of MBAs, similar to the hybrid programs. You don't have the MBA value add in those certifications, like leadership training, alumni network, uh, broader business acumen that still reign for strategic roles in certain fields. Uh, but on the upside is you also have the opportunity for stackability. You can combine certifications with MBAs, like think Wharton's PMP prep and an MBA for project leaders. That's going to be
Mhm.
incredible for depending on what you're seeking. Um, if you consider the speed versus depth, depending on what you're looking for, certifications can take weeks. MBAs take 2 years usually, but they build the whole side of strategic thinking. Being able to handle mergers versus running a scrum team, right? Depends on what skills you're looking to acquire. That and whatever that fits your goals is, I think, going to help you direct the decision on whether to go certification, hybrid, or an MBA.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and I think it's also a, like you said, it's about like your goals, right? And you're not going to get everything from the quote, like for lack of a better word, the cheaper programs or the less involved programs that you're going to get from the full-time program, particularly around networking. But also, maybe your goal isn't networking, right? It just depends so much on what you're trying to do. Yeah, so then another question that I wanted to talk about is with regards to just, with MBA programs, I think a big challenge nowadays, right, is the cost. It still is very expensive. I think it's kind of become standard for it to get in the ballpark of $200,000 a year at this point. And how do you feel like, how do you feel like basically, you know, what's there to be done about it?
Well, um, yeah, it is costly. And unfortunately, it is slowly kind of merging more into like the elite echelons of society. But if you let's take a look at the current landscape. For example, there are federal loans like the FAFSA continue unchanged.
Mhm,
You can get private scholarships or merit aid that are school dependent. You can negotiate scholarships actually using competing offers, depending on the schools. But also, you can target schools that have endowed fellowships, such as Stanford's Knight Hennessy, right?
mhm,
Some schools also offer more niche scholarships, like the Forte Foundation for Women or Romba for
mhm,
LGBTQ plus. Um, there's also like opportunities for like loan forgiveness, public service roles where if it's governmental or nonprofits, those candidates may qualify for PSLF. So this can be also factored into uh, not only the school choice but also looking for opportunities. I mean, if you dig deep enough, you will most likely find some programs or scholarships or opportunities that could, let's say, cushion that 200K, make it a little bit less of a daunting obstacle for post MBA life. Um,
mhm,
for international students, what I would say is definitely secure scholarships early, because most schools will limit this for non-citizens. Um, but yeah, I
mhm.
mean, it's a matter of like, okay, we get it that it's expensive, and even cost of living, right? I don't know if you want me to touch on a little bit of cost of living since we're already in this
Yeah,
financial
no, let's do
discussion,
it.
right? So, I mean, that's another thing you have to consider when you're planning on pursuing an MBA. You definitely want to build a strategy as you're digging through all these opportunities for scholarships. You also want to build a strategy where you can prioritize schools that are in lower cost cities, right? Um, Classic example: Duke Fuqua versus Columbia, right? Lower cost, much better. When one of the reasons why Duke Fuqua had such a high application count this year, it was nuts. Like how much that factors into a candidate's decision into where he or she wants to study. Um, some MBAs also provide internships or freelancing. That's something that can help offset those costs. You'll definitely have to check the school policies on being able to work during your studies. Uh,
Mhm,
Also, there are some tax strategies you can look into. Speak with your accountant. Some scholarships are actually tax free. They have tuition waivers. Others will count as income, so you can plan accordingly, talking to your accountant. And
mhm,
even schools like Haas right now, they're starting to provide some student run co op shared housings to cut rent costs. Just rooming up,
mhm.
and schools like Haas, they're helping students, hook up with other students and be able to kind of relive that graduate dorm room environment, which I miss. I don't know. I think once you're in a certain age, though, you kind of want to have your own space. But yeah, if it's a matter
But
of
I mean, if it saves you money, I mean, campus housing doesn't save you money in undergrad. It's usually more expensive.
exactly, exactly. And definitely, budgeting hacks. Get down with those grad student discounts. Amazon Prime or Apple student discounts and campus amenities too. Taking use of all of their the gyms, the showers. I mean, it depends on what situation you're in. But if you want to get down to the nitty gritty and you want to be able to you want to save on utilities. You go take that shower on campus. Why not? I mean, you're there, right? It's that whole thing where you go to an expensive hotel and you always take the soap that you didn't use and you know put that in your bag before you check out. So same concept, but we understand it's the hustle and the grind. You need to get that education, and in order to get that, sometimes you have to kind of figure out, all right, how are we going to get through this without taking such a big financial hit?
Yeah, well, and I mean it's interesting because um like, in normal grad school, I guess, not MBA programs, oftentimes you work for the school, right? And you earn a salary and like can kind of pay, it's almost like a job rather than like you're kind of paying for an education like you are an undergrad. Or at a minimum, you could like TA or something, right? There's like stuff you can do with the school. Is that the case for MBAs and I just don't hear about it, or is it not as common there?
It's not as common, but it does exist. I mean, you could absolutely check out for support systems. I would say if you contact the schools for even smaller programs like Tuck and Darden, like they'll provide professor engagement. You can ask current students and even like the career centers for like RA opportunities or teacher TA opportunities. There are a few of them. I haven't done any like I didn't really dig into any of that side of opportunities for any of my students, but I do know they exist. There's always some corner of a school that of a program that could use your help, and they'd be willing to pay for it.
Yeah. Well, and I think also it's just like, I think MBA programs understand their target audience has probably got more money than a lot of grad students or potential grad students, so they can push it a little bit more. At the end of the day, this is all for profit, ostensibly. Um, but yeah, I mean, you touched on cost of living a bit. I mean, I think part of what exacerbates cost of living is just where the best schools are, right? They're typically, downtown New York or downtown LA or like in Palo Alto, right? Like these are some of the most expensive places. I mean, do you have any thoughts about you know, how to find maybe like a way to split an apartment, or is there anything along those lines like that could help, or is this kind of just, the same as it has always been?
Yeah, especially with like the housing issues, with with the increasing amount of Airbnbs. Yeah, it's kind of the same problem it's always been. Even back in the day for students who are looking for cheaper housing, it's just a matter of, you know, landing. I mean, let's say you absolutely have to go to Columbia because that is the school. Well, okay. So
Mhm.
you're prioritizing the school brand and what that school can provide you with through its program. Fantastic. Now you'd have to face that second problem, which is, all right, do I want to live further away and commute every day? How does that
Mhm.
affect my networking opportunities? Or a lot of times, top schools, what happens once you're accepted is you're automatically put into like a WhatsApp group, a communication
Mm.
group, and
Oh, I didn't
immediately,
know that. That's great.
yeah, oh, it's cool. Like Chicago Booth students, like, an, an hour after students receive their acceptance email, they'll join into a group automatically, and everyone there will be like, there will be alumni and current students of your cohorts in that group, and everyone will be congratulating you. It's this whole party there. Great. Then people start talking about, hey, what's going on with housing? What are you guys doing? Anybody want to room up? All right. Anybody know anyone looking for a roommate? And it just kicks off that kind of, let me help you. We can help each other. Let's everyone throw our cards on the table and let's figure this out. And I've had plenty of students here in Brazil who would go to visit the campus even before their interviews. They would do a campus research. and they'll reach out to an alumnus, and that alumnus will be like, hey, I know a second year student who's there. He or she's gonna contact you, and that student will host, the visiting student who hasn't even been who hasn't even been invited into an interview yet. They'll welcome them
Wow.
to the
Okay.
home. Yeah. And just take them around the school, show them around, take them to the nice places to eat, show them the best housing, locations. So yeah, it's like getting down into the battlefield, right? If you are absolutely set on going to a top program in a busy city where cost of living is high, then you need to go visit that campus beforehand.
Mhm.
Get in contact with second year students who are already living there and get their input on where's the bread, what are some options that I have for better housing, cheaper housing, can you and that's where it all starts, I think, when you're out there in the battlefield, just really going through the trenches, because
Yeah.
there's only so much you can do with online search, right? You're gonna find those, you're gonna find high ticket places to rent, but when you're there, that's when somebody knows somebody who's renting out a room in the back of their home, and it's like
Yeah.
$400 instead of 2,000. I mean,
Right.
makes a
Yeah.
difference.
That does make a difference. I mean, it can definitely like it's really just relying on sort of the resources that you can and not being afraid to ask for help, right? I think it's when you're going to undergrad, like everybody's in the same boat, which is just like no one really has any idea what's going on, right? And but then you get to grad school and there's this, or MBA programs, I think there's this like, oh, I was already out in the working world, like I already should be self-sufficient, and it's like it's okay to ask for help. Um, and then yeah, you touched on this a little bit. I think this is a good one to kind of wrap up with. Is you talked about how Chicago booth when you get accepted, you get added to this this chat group, and I think it's just interesting to like talk about kind of what are like the support systems that are available for you on campus. How do you find that out? I mean, I'm sure some schools are better at like putting it in your face than others, right? So,
Hmm. Yeah, so a lot of most of the top 20 schools, all of the top 20 schools have incredible support systems. You definitely want to attend all the virtual events, or if there's an event in your city, depending on what country you live in, if you're an international student, you want to be there. You want to talk to second year students, to alumnus, to alumni, to AdCom members, and scour all the forums possible, like Poets and Quants, definitely Reddit, GMAT Club, right? Um, you also have career offices in all of these campuses. They're very responsive on almost all of them. The work you do with career services starts long before you've stepped foot onto your program. So once you're accepted,
mhm.
you definitely want to reach out to the career offices. Already start talking to one of their consultants and kind of set a few meetings, kind of figure out, hey, how do I ensure that I don't leave my MBA unemployed, right? How
Mhm.
do we build this plan out together? Can you point me to where it's, my north? There are also mental health resources too. Mental health is actually, it's been on the rise. Yale SOM program offers free therapy and stress management workshops, because many times the first year students, because of FOMO, fear of missing out, they try to do too much,
Right.
and they bite off most of that. They bite off more than they can chew, and more often than not, they require some sort of therapy, because schools don't want you to drop out. They want to see
Right.
you thrive, right? You are their calling card moving forward. So they are also investing in that. There are many affinity groups for veterans, for LGBTQ plus, for clubs, right? You can have a LATAM club for all the Latin Americans that are on campus, first, second year students, and any alumni who are still around the city working. They all take part of these gatherings and meetups, and you should definitely reach out to the alumni network of your city, because there
Mhm.
should be a chapter there, depending on the network, on the club. Um, Larger programs though, like Harvard, for example, I'm not saying that I don't like them, but sometimes they do feel a little bit impersonal. Like it's just bigger, it's larger, and everyone's super busy. But
Right.
if you're, it's just life, right? They're looking to advance their careers exponentially. So it's really hard to kind of get into that support system. Everyone's kind of standing on their own. But if you go into a smaller program like Tuck, Tuck, Kelly, they have tight knit communities. Like
Mhm.
even overseas, one of the strongest alumni networks I've seen, and I've been part of, is IESE, IESE. Their alumni network is just incredible. Like if you say you're a Yazzie and you want to go to, if you're looking to go into Yazzie and you want to go to some sort of meetup, they'll make sure you're there, and you feel part of the community even before you've applied to the school, right? So yeah, I mean, reach out to all of their, all of these support systems, the
Mhm.
clubs. You can reach out to the whiskey club at Darden, for example. It's a student led club, and they'll reveal like all the informal vibes and the culture of that school. And the more you get into it, the more you realize if that's the right school for you or not. Because if you meet and speak with like 10 students, very rarely you will like all 10 of them. Like you probably
Right.
won't look at them and be like, all 10 of these can become my best friends. But there will be that one school where you're like, dang, everybody is so cool, right?
Right.
That's a clear indicator where I think, in my personal opinion and professional opinion, that's the school you should be looking at as your priority versus, hey, there's a school that I think I'm
I
going to
gotta go
apply
to
to.
Harvard, right? Or
Right.
whatever.
Right. No, I mean, you start talking to some Harvard students. I've had students tell me like, I hated everyone. I'm like, and you still want to go there? Well, Harvard is Harvard. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the situation for most of the people at Harvard. So it depends
Right.
again on what you're looking for in your MBA experience.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been GRE Snacks, hosted by Tyler from Achievable with Mateo Chang. And Achievable has a great online GRE course you can try for free at achievable.me and use the code podcast to get yourself 10% off at checkout.